Ooh. Well, it looks like we're live. It's showing a little icon there with my microphone. But we won't actually start anything for 5 minutes. I just wanted to see if I could actually do this because I wasn't sure. Well, it doesn't look like anyone's joined yet, but we will ball. not sure if anyone's on yet, but oh, looks like we have one viewer. Hello. So I'll probably wait a few more minutes to see if more people show up before we begin the reading, but I'm very excited to share Ghosts and Futures from Hope is Not Passive. Okay, someone just left. That's fine. You know, I'm not really sure what I should be saying when there's nobody here. It's a little sad, a little lonely, a little existential. You know, I always dreamed about becoming a writer, and now it just kind of feels like another. Oh, we have somebody here. It better be John. Yes. Oh, Berries on a Hill. Hello. So I might not recognize people's like YouTube names. So if people want to like introduce themselves in the chat, I would really appreciate it, and I can, you know, say hi in a more personal way. Yes, JL, la la la. I know you. Yeah, no, so we're gonna wait a few minutes for more people to show up. Maybe I have another stream tomorrow, and I know more people are going to that. I have a lot of family in the lower 48. Oh, Ella! Oh my God, hi! I'm so excited. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. But yeah, I have a lot of family in the lower 48. So, okay, that's John. He's my boyfriend. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. As I say, but yeah, I have a lot of family in the lower 48, so I have another stream scheduled for an earlier time tomorrow. So, you know, I have my grandparents who are going to be on that one. My brother, my sister's not going to either of them because she has a job or something, but you know, that's life. Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited. You can see, I always forget which side is which when I'm filming, but you can see the copy of the book over there. It's very cute, very purple. I've decorated it with like some seashells and things that I've collected over the years. And by collected, I mean bought at like the, yeah, those pesky jobs. So true. But yeah, that I've like bought at like the Saturday market and stuff like that. I've never seen like a cool seashell just out in the wild. I've bought all the cool ones that I have, like this purple one. This is definitely a favorite of mine. I think it's really neat. And then this is like a little barnacle type deal. A lot of fun. This is just turning into a seashell haul. And then I have a bunch of these little glass floats, but I just brought my favorite one out to display near the book. And I usually have them displayed around a different book because when I got my master's in publishing, the year before we did our anthology, we helped out a little bit with the previous cohort's anthology. And the theme for that one was merciless mermaids. So it had a lot of really good, edgy, dark, like mermaid stories. And I mean, I actually have it really close. I'll pop out a frame and grab it. Yeah, so this is Merciless Mermaids, and it has a lot of really messed up stories, but I love it. I might like the stories in it better than the one in my year's anthology, to be honest. The one that I worked on was called Feisty Felines and Other Fantastical Familiars. So, you know, it had like magical cat and other magical animal stories. And, you know, it was a lot of fun, but I like the edginess of the mermaid one. I think they went to some really, really unexpected places in that anthology. And I also just love the ocean. I love mermaids. So I had a lot of fun reading that anthology. And I'm sure I'll have a lot of fun reading the other stories in Hope is Not Passive. I haven't really gotten a chance to get around to any of them but mine just yet. But I'm really excited. One of them is by a YouTuber by the name of Jolie Black. And they are, they're an academic, they're autistic. They did a really interesting video about Milo Winter about this time last year. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with Milo Winter, but basically he was a debut author who, you know, had been dropped by his agent, but got huge TikTok popularity, just a ton of pre-orders. And the money was just kind of pouring in from those pre-orders and that virality. And then the book dropped and it was notoriously bad. And I mean, honestly, I don't think that many people were that mad until Milo started really firing back and like blaming other people on social media for his book's failure, which rubbed people the wrong way, especially because Milo came off very arrogant in some TikToks he was posting about how he was a child prodigy and had been writing for 10,000 hours. And And then he just also said things that made it clear that like he was not really that serious about editing as much as he was just being an author and having that sort of, I don't know, that author status. So it all fell apart because he kept just promising and promising things and not fulfilling them. Like he said he was going to revise the book and he didn't. He kept telling people to, subscribe to his Patreon and they would get updates and then they weren't. And he hired a bunch of people when he really just needed to sit down and edit the damn thing. And so it just spiraled into this crazy internet nightmare. And all this to say, Jolie Black, I believe, did the most nuanced video about this whole drama. Like, they weren't just clowning on Milo Winter. Like, they really took into account the fact that Milo is autistic and looked at, how autistic people can have these things called paracosms and how, writing a book around your paracosm can seem like a great idea because it's this world that's so real to you and you know so much about it. But that's also a really hard thing to share with the world, because it's so deep and personal to you that if people reject it, it feels like a rejection of who you are. So I really respect Jolie for diving that deeply into Milo Winter's story. And I was so excited when I saw their name on like the contributor list for this anthology. So their story is definitely be the first that I read. In fact, I'll look at the table of contents and see what it's called. I dropped the copy I was holding. Okay, let's see. I know theirs is towards the beginning and mine is somewhere towards the middle. Let's see. Okay. Today I Learned by Jolie Black. I'm looking forward to that. And then mine, Ghosts and Futures. So I'll probably give it another couple minutes, but it might just be the two of you, and that's all good. It's still worth it to me. I love to yap. I love to share my story, and I'm glad to have friends here. And my boyfriend, I'm sure he wants a special shout out. You're so special to me. Okay. Yeah, no. It seems like there are some that are they have very sci-fi titles. Like there's one that's like Project_Golem. Like that sounds intriguing to me. Like I mean, Ella, I know obviously, like you know me from Tolkien Society, you gotta know I love fantasy. I love science fiction too, and that's more where I lean as a writer for the most part. I have been working really hard on my wizard story in the past couple days. I've been pretty locked in on it. Yes, I do know the yapping part. I see that. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, no, what was I even saying? I yapped too much. I forgot what I was yapping about. I was talking about the wizard story. Yes, I finally sat down and got a draft of a chapter 2, which is actually my first time doing it in like the 10 years that I've had this project milling around. Like I've done like dozens of chapter 1s, but never actually got all the way through a chapter 2 draft. So, progress. And now I'm on to chapter 3 and it's a lot. Things spiral in this book very fast. So by chapter 3, we already have a lot happening. And I'm getting back into that issue where it's like, trying to balance out, how much world building detail I need to share in order for the story to make sense versus how much is just going to be overwhelming and get in the way of telling the actual story. Yay, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it too. And I'm glad that you're excited. But yeah, that's the same project I was like showing you maps from a couple months ago, back when we had like the maps session. So yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to like include the maps in the story, but it does get your mind working on some world building. Oh, it looks like we have someone new in the stream. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, go ahead. I might not recognize you by YouTube handle alone, so you can say, hi, this is so-and-so, if you want. No pressure if you don't want to, but it's nice to know who we got around. I love a good nap. I love a good nap. I love a nap and a yap. I actually, I have a hard time like napping, like if I sleep, but I cannot just like fall asleep in the middle of the day. But my siblings absolutely can, anytime, anywhere. Just we have this very funny picture of my sister Erica when map. I thought it was gap, but it was nap and then it was map. We're just all over the map today. But yeah, no, I do love a good map. That session was a lot of fun. Okay, not sure who is our lucky number 3 today, but maybe we'll learn, maybe we won't. Let's see. I also love a good nap. Yeah. But no, I was saying we have a really funny picture of my sister when she was a senior in high school. She was a senior during 2020. So COVID was happening and she was, on Zoom school. And we have a picture of her just crashed out on the couch, fast asleep with like the dog lying on her. And my dad captioned it, zooming her way through senior year. And we always reference it anytime that she's like sleeping. you do one thing and then it's with you for life. Let's see. I think we'll start at 6:15, and if people miss the beginning, they got to read the book, and it's a good thing if you do read it and you do get it, because the money goes to Kids in Need of Defense, which is a really important organization. They help when kids are separated from their parents at the borders. Kids in Need of Defense actually provides legal assistance. So, as you can imagine, with this current administration, that is a really valuable service that they're providing. And, especially since I'm Latina, like, this is an issue that I've been, familiar with for, a long time. And it's, I was very glad when I saw that this was the charity that Hope is Not Passive decided to help out, because originally they had said that they were going to do something in terms of immigrant justice, but they hadn't picked a specific charity. But Kids in Need of Defense was one that I had heard of and was really, excited that, my work could, in some small way, maybe contribute to something with that great of a mission. I think it's really nice. Yeah. I was gonna say, but yeah, no, I've done a little promotion for the anthology outside of these streams. Like, I was a vendor at a market. It was like an end of summer bazaar, and it was a bunch of like Latino owned businesses, and it was really nice to get to see everyone. Like, there's people from El Salvador, from Cuba, Venezuela, like just literally everywhere. But we're all sort of coming together and supporting each other as a community. It was really great. What was not really great was my Spanish. I know a little bit, but I know a lot more Russian. And so when I'm speaking another language, my brain just sort of jumps into wanting to speak Russian like halfway through the sentence. So unless I really have time to like sit down and write out what I'm going to say and like memorize it, I really cannot speak Spanish, but I can understand a good amount, So they came around and did like live interviews at everyone's booth, and I'd like been practicing for like 2 hours as I was setting up just like the like 3 sentences I needed to say. And I was still like umming and ahhing and like messing it up, I'm sure. But I got through it. And nothing in my life has ever, okay, I feel that I'm going to Mexico in October. Oh, that's so cool. We're in Mexico. That's awesome. And I actually need to brush up. Are you going to be there for Dia de los Muertos? I mean, I guess that's November, but you know what I mean. That's so cool. Oh my God. The only time I've been to Mexico was we went to Juarez, and I think for like a cousin's birthday. And really all I remember was they strung up this huge piñata between my cousin's house and like the neighbors and swung it back and forth. And it hit me in the head and I cried. And I was scared of piñatas for years. So that was my experience with Mexico. But, there's so many wonderful experiences to be had there. I want to bring your first book. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. No, that's really nice. Yeah, I did when the book first came out, Francisca and the Forgotten, I did a launch on Dia de los Muertos, and it was a really fun party. John can attest to that because he was there. Yeah, no, it was a great time, and Dia de los Muertos is such a fascinating tradition, and I don't know. I would love to go to Mexico for Dia de los Muertos sometime, or even just the Southwest again, honestly. But I'm going to be in El Paso in February for my stepmom's birthday. It's her 50th, and she wants to have a party down there with her family. So looking forward to that. Well, it's 6:15. We have a few people. I think I'm going to start. And, if people are late at this point, that's on them. So let us go to Ghosts and Futures. Maybe I should look at the table of contents and not just guess at it. Okay. Okay, yeah, 161. Okay. Here we go. Ghosts and Futures, and I will try not to read too fast. Tongues, sentience, work. The benefactors gave us everything. Never forget, my dearest begotten, pale Cirrus tells us tenderly in his high, tremulous voice what an honor it was to be uplifted. He cups his hands as if holding water. They shake. His fingers are swollen, blue-tinged in the ghostly light of the chapel. Around us rise honeycombed white walls. Cirrus once preached of creatures called birds whose bones were hollow. They could, for a time, become lighter than air. All the benefactors build is forged in the image of the bleached, delicate lattices within those ancient skeletons. The birds are gone, but the benefactors remain, rightful heirs to the sky. I know this life was no one's destiny. Their bodies bear the strain of an unnatural existence, as do ours. Necessity drove the benefactors here to floating, oxygen starved cities high above the wreckage of centuries past. When the clouds shift, we see the rusting bones of skyscrapers, seas of fires within oceans where oil spilled centuries ago, towers of immortal detritus. Those always puzzled me. If the benefactors created things that could not rot, why do their bodies still decay? It is not a question one can ask. It is not a question one can ask, even a feeble, smiling Cirrus. He only offers answers about the cloud layers of the afterlife. The ceremony weighs on. We begotten keep our head low. We begotten keep our heads low. Chilly mist curls over dozens of bare feet, obscuring webbed toes and flaking scales. The harsh mouth breathing of my cohort vibrates through the fins on either side of my neck. We struggle, always, against suffocation. But it is not just oxygen we crave, it is moisture. Our bodies remember the sea, even if our minds cannot. My ancestors plucked yours from fetid tide pools, Cirrus says, beaming, from an existence, I dare not say lives, dear ones, for there is no life without a soul, as meaningless as the meanderings of an amoeba. His enthusiasm outpaces his lungs. He is breathless before the end of the sentence. I hear the word amoeba only because I, an elder, stand in the front row. Yet Cirrus wheezes on. We cultured you in every sense. Yes, we made you, as our father made us. How lucky you are that we did. He casts his spindly arms wide. We woodenly do the same, embracing our gratitude. Cirrus has paused before a grand gap in the wall. The view behind him is pearlescent, a vast cumulonimbus inflamed by the sun. Oh, to love the clouds! How beautiful they must be if they are not where your kind is sent to die. But the water harvest is rarely without casualties. A hiss from behind shivers up my fins. Nuele too sees the cloud. His thoughts are anything but wistful. The call for communion seems like it will never come, but it does. I lead the begotten single file to the altar, where we lick bitter wine from Cirrus's fingertips. From the corner of my eye, I see Nuele come forward. He lowers his head reluctantly, the frayed edges of his turquoise fins curling inward. Cirrus pats him on the head. The youth shudders with rage. Because it is Sunday, we have 1 hour to spend as we like, should the priest permit it. Cirrus always does. But there is trouble in the air, and it takes the shape of a moisture-laden cumulonimbus within harvesting range. Just as I dreaded, before anyone can step out of the chapel, the overseer bursts inside. Overseer Ave bleeds within his eyes. The affliction is not uncommon among the benefactors. Some have red-splotched eyes, just as some have hair above their lips or jewels in their ears. But Overseer Ave's eyes burn. It turns the blood incandescent. Were he not taller and stronger than any of us, we would fear him even so. Shuttles here, he snarls. A frown creases Cirrus's placid face. You're not due for another hour. The overseer glowers at the old man. Hasi says he wants these mouth breathers, and that there cloud, he thrusts a thick finger toward the cumulonimbus, and he wants them there now. Take them then, says Cirrus coolly. In the meantime, I'll speak to the Hasi myself. Surely he understands the sanctity of the Lord's day. You'll get your rest hour, dear begotten, he promises. We shuffle out. A coughing fit strikes, bending him double. When he straightens, he adds faintly, What poor sort of gods would we be, to create souls and fail to nurture them? What poor sort of gods? I lost my mother in a cumulonimbus. Rarely do we know our mothers, but I was blessed. I was held by her, loved by her. I even shared her name, Spera. Beyond that, one never would have guessed we were related. She was vivid green while I am pale. The fins of my neck and arms are rounded, and hers were flared. Her bright, bulbous eyes were slit vertically. I used to mourn that mine were different, getting so sad that my nictating membranes would flicker. Then my mother told me horizontal slits were a rare gift, far-seeing, a sign I was meant to be wise. My far-seeing eyes still ache when I close them. Lightning flashes, a tearing streak of brilliance. Hers was not the first lightning death I witnessed. It was far from the last. It is still the one I return to every time I hear thunder roll behind the thin, shivering walls of a shuttle. I have to adjust how I'm holding it because I have my pinky bent awkwardly. I force myself into the present. Do not think of death. Think of my neck itches. That will do. I focus on my skin-tight harvest suit, cataloging every place it pinches, the sensitive spot on my neck, the webs between my fingers and toes, my arms where my scales are falling out in patches. By contrast, the bare strips on either side of my torso feel cool, but that does nothing to lighten my spirit. My moisture sacs are exposed. Soon they will be tender, engorged. Once my body has done the work of purging toxins, the overseer will plunge a needle through the thin skin, extracting every ounce of precious water. The jump hatch grates open. Icy wind shears through my fins. My nicotinating membranes slide into place, and my view of the ocean and my view of the others blurs, dim splotches of blue and green above dark gray harvest suits, faceless. But I can make out bodies pressed against the walls as far as possible from the howling chasm in the shuttle's belly. There is no avoiding what comes next, but in every shuttle there is the same moment of silent complicity. We will go if we are ordered. We will go if we are threatened or pushed. We will not go simply because it is inevitable. We will not give the overseer that peace. Overseer Ave rages about how it's always the same, how we mindless mouth breathers wouldn't know how to put one foot in front of the other if we weren't told. Red-tinged spittle flies from his mouth when he shouts, "If one of you doesn't jump in the next 5 seconds, I'll blow you all to hell." He is holding a thin silver box, a remote. I cannot make out individual buttons through my membranes, but I know there are many. One of them will, in fact, kill us all. The overseer can send an electric pulse through our harvest suits, stopping our hearts. "You'll die," he says with relish, "but not before you feel it frying every inch of your slimy, rotten little skins." His face hardens. 5. No one moves. 4. Rustling. Has someone stepped forward? 3. I remember Nuele seething in the chapel. I hope it is not him, or that if it is, he does not act rashly. 2. The remote gleams. I see a weapon to be feared. Brighter, more desperate eyes might see an opportunity. Does Nuele? Will he take it? 1. A deep blue blur moves toward the jump hatch. Not Nuele, then. My neck fins flatten with relief. With effort, I retract my nictitating membranes, trying to see who it is. I do not recognize her, which means she must be the one Siahel and Valta were traded for. 2 elders, useful perhaps for tending infants, exchanged for one shining youth, a bargain the Hasi must be proud of. Few of my generation remain. Fewer still retain the quickness of mind Valta had, or sky blue Siahel's love of life. Valta was like a sister to me, and Siahel something more. She made me grateful we slept on the floor and not in cots, as we did in the hacienda where I was hatched. No mattress could have offered as much comfort as Siahel's arms around my back, her forehead tucked under my chin. I push the thought aside. If I dwell on Siahel and Valta's absence, I may resent this girl's presence. I will bear her no bitterness. She would not have chosen this either. She is only an adolescent. While most of her scales are a rich, lustrous blue, a few translucent baby scales still speckle her flat face. Though her coloring is darker, we favor each other. The fins on her neck are neatly rounded, and her eyes are slit horizontally. I retreat behind my eyelids. I can't bear it, those familiar features on this unknown girl child. So many eggs were stolen from me over the years. But keeping my eyes closed is impossible. What if she is my daughter? What if I never see her again? I take another peek. "I go," she says deliberately. Each generation adapts to mouth speech better than the last. Tongue clumsy as I am, those 2 short words would be a struggle. Overseer Ave points his remote at the girl. "Then jump," he barks. She does not jump the way we are taught. Instead, she falls back, arms outspread, eyes closed. The slick wings of her harvest suit fan out from the undersides of her arms, and the wind whisks her away. Nuele throws himself after her, diving through the hatch head first. Though I am usually one of the last to leap, especially into a cumulonimbus, I surge forward. The sooner I get out there, the sooner I can find that girl and learn her name. I jump properly, feet first, arms tucked close until I'm through the hatch. A maelstrom tears at me from all sides. Thunder shudders through my bones. Hail chips off the oldest, weakest scales on my face. I'm not only in the heart of the storm, I'm in its blood and I am drowning. And yet, I cast my wings wide and my neck fins flutter in exultation. Oh, blessed moisture! Distant lightning arcs overhead, but there is an instant where even that cannot frighten me. Finally, I can breathe. I blink over and over for the sheer joy of feeling my eyelids glide over properly moistened eyes. My sight is sharper than ever. Even through hail and cloud cover, I can see the blunt shape of the shuttle, the soaring forms of the other begotten. Most remain more or less at my altitude. If we stray too far from the shuttle, the wings on our harvest suits automatically retract. At first, I glide in sweeping circles, savoring the sensation of flight. It gets harder as my moisture sacs fill, weighing me down. With thin old arms like mine, it is not easy to regain lost altitude, and the wind and hail are no allies. I bat my wings hard, taking shelter under the shuttle. Though I wanted to seek out the newcomer, this is no time for fancy flying. The youths could not disagree more. Above, I spot several engaged in some kind of chasing game that involves slapping each other on the moisture sacs. Before I can determine if the girl is among them, Nuele shoots past me. He goes high, higher than is wise, but not high enough to escape the cloud. Is that his goal? Does he dream of it? He must. And as I flap my tired arms and bow my tired head, I imagine his dream coming true for both of us. How bright it must be beyond the clouds, how strong one must be to get there. Just when I think Nuele has gone too far and his wings will retract, he corkscrews into a steep dive, more acrobatics, I assume. Then I spot what Nuele is chasing, a small dark shape hurtling downward. My webs tightened involuntarily, clenching my fingers and toes. Someone is falling out of the sky. This is a more common death than lightning. A wicked wind can push you out of shuttle range in an instant. All you can do is hope a countercurrent pushes you back, that or plummet. It could also be another elder, weaker than I, unable to keep their arms extended well enough to glide. Daring Nuele! He shreds through the sky and snatches up the fallen figure. I recognize the slack, faded green face of Dolocanto, the second oldest member of our cohort. Nuele has saved him, for a moment, but the winds are fierce. With the added weight of Dolocanto's limp body in his arms and both of their moisture sacs swelling by the second, I shudder, then spread my wings. Stinging hail pummels me as I emerge from the shuttle's shadow. Blood trickles down my temples, more scales pried loose. I fly as fast as I can, but they are falling faster. I may not get there in time. I may not be much help if I do. Still, Someone swoops past me, swift as the wind. Only when they reach Nuele do they slow enough for me to see their face. It is the girl again. She scoops up Dolocanto's dangling legs, and Nuele is able to stall their descent. Together they rise, safe. I am so relieved my flight falters, but I quickly catch myself and glide toward the trio. As I approach, I hear Nuele's neck fins flapping violently. With so much water in the air, even the lightest flutter would reverberate well. There is no need to shout. Then again, wind warps even the strongest voice, and it is better to be loud than unheard. Let go! I can do this on my own! No, you can't, the girl returns mildly. She may be as angry as Nuele. It is hard to tell. Rounded fins produce gentler vibrations. Neither could I. We need each other. I don't need anyone, Nuele snaps. Dolocanto's fins twitch. His are flared like Nuele's, but much narrower, giving his words a note of whininess. Just drop me. Just let me die. Shut up, old man. Nuele, I admonish, now near enough to join the conversation, do not disrespect your elders. Nuele is so annoyed he groans through his mouth like a benefactor, but he does not talk back, not to me. I like to think it is because I have never lost my patience with him, and he trusts me. Perhaps I am simply no fun to argue with. Either way, my luck with Nuele is better than most. I turn toward the girl. Do you two need help? She smiles. Our faces, stiff, small-mouthed, are not meant for smiling, but we do. We have him now, but stay close if you can, she says. That way, if the wind catches us, we should head for the shuttle. A prudent suggestion, though I suspect Nuele cut in for the sake of interrupting her more than anything. The girl accedes without argument, and we make our way back to the shuttle. The hail lightens, so does the wind. The flight is almost peaceful. I would enjoy it if not for my aching sides where the skin on my moisture sacs grows tight. We are not long into the harvest period, but my sacs, shrunken with age, are already nearing capacity. Meanwhile, Nuele and the girl are not yet half full. Dolocanto suffers worse than I, or else thinks his suffering will be lessened if he complains a bit more. I'm going to burst, he groans. I'm burning. It's too full. You'd burn worse if your sacs weren't full, Nuele retorts, which silences Dolocanto. We all know the penalty for failing to meet quota. What do you think it'd look like if a benefactor got burned alive? He goes on cruelly. What would it sound like? You wouldn't hear scales crisping up and cracking. You wouldn't... Stop, the girl pleads. They didn't stop when it was my brother. Nuele is so furious he trembles. They burned him alive, and it wasn't even for something he did. He had plans for an uprising. He was going to kill the benefactors and set us free, but he never got a chance because hail punctured his moisture sacs and he didn't make quota, and they took him, and Nuele's fins droop. The girl leans forward and lightly touches her fins to his. Nuele releases a shuddering breath through his mouth, and his panting eases. Don't touch me. For once, Nuele sounds subdued. Who are you, anyway? My name is Evadia. Nuele, he says, giving her a long, appraising look.
There were people at my old hacienda who talked about rebelling too, like your brother. Nuele's eyes gleam. What was their plan? A wistful flutter from Evadia. We would be in the shuttle, like usual, and the overseer would die. How? Nuela demands. He was very old. We knew his time would come sooner or later. Why not in the shuttle? Nuela hisses. That's no plan, leaving everything to chance. He would die, and we would all be free. Free to go where? Dolacanto's face sags with resignation. The waters are all poisoned. He is correct. The water we gather from clouds, though far from pure, is filtered by nature before it reaches us. The heaviest toxins remain in the oceans below, toxins our body's purification systems were never meant to process. I was told, says Evadia, her earnest baby-scaled face sparkling in the rain, about a place called the Water Moon. There's no water on the moon, Wellis scoffs. Not our moon, says Evadia patiently. The Water Moon circles a world the benefactors haven't touched. Its entire surface is a never-ending ocean. Her fins wave with a dreamy, almost mesmeric languor. We would soar beyond the clouds, through the star sea of night, and the Water Moon would welcome us. When the sunlight strikes, the whole moon glimmers like a pearl. The waters are pure and sweet. We'll be able to breathe and to fly without wings. On the Water Moon, we'll finally be free. How beautiful. My words are so soft, I am unsure Evadia hears them, but perhaps it is for the best. My spirit aches, a lovely ache, at the young dreamer's words, and I do not know if I am strong enough to tell her why. Could you be my daughter? I hardly know which answer would hurt more. Dolocanto sighs aloud. The closest any of us will get to that water moon is heaven, if they take our kind. That's the story the benefactors tell us, says Evadia. What makes mine less true? Dwelle's eyes harden. Stories aren't enough. We have to fight. Cirrus manages to get us that rest hour after all. Our sunset feeding period is extended from its usual 15 minutes, and instead of the meal being brought to our quarters, it is presented to us in the rock garden behind the chapel. The smoldering black slag heap looks particularly unappetizing in contrast to the pristine white sand. We are all so hungry after the harvest that we salivate anyway. The acid glands under my tongue swell in anticipation. Cirrus greets us with a proud smile. The Lord has provided, my begotten. Eat and rejoice. The young shoot past him, flinging themselves upon their feed. They tear into the dark refuse with relish, ripping out chunks with their needle-like teeth. I remember when I could eat like that. Now I have to soften the slag with spit before biting into it, lest I lose the few teeth I have left. Dolocanto shuffles up to the priest. The dying light seems to catch in every crevice of his face, making it appear as though it is cracking open to reveal an inner radiance. He has lost more scales than I have. His arms are bare almost to the elbows, exposing slick, mossy-looking flesh. Slowly he lifts his head, gazing at Cirrus with veneration, and makes the effort to address him in mouth speech. Ha, hoo, ha, ha. Thank you, father. The priest pats him on the head as he did Nuele, but Dolocanto closes his eyes and accepts it. More than that, he savors it. To Dolocanto, this is the closest he will get to God or heaven, the closest he dares come to imagining freedom. Though his hope takes a shape I find no comfort in, I am glad he has it. As Dolocanto approaches the slag heap, Cirrus's eyes fix on me. Cessna, he exclaims, using the benefactor's name for me. I'm glad you made it back, dear. The fountain is in terrible shape, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to ask you to clean it during your rest hour, but... nah, I say, doing my best to enunciate honor around swollen acid glands. Cirrus hands me the supply bucket. Inside is a hard-bristled brush used to scrub the white stone basin where the water falls, and an iron wand meant to probe the drain, which often clogs. I am so eager to attend to my task, not the benefactor's task, but mine, that it is all I can do not to rush to the fountain. But if I do not eat now, I will not eat until next sunrise. I feed, then head for the fountain. Then I stop. I find Nuele still biting at the slag heap and rustle my fins at him. The dry air can barely sustain a whisper, but Nuele hears his name and looks up. I incline my head toward the chapel. Perplexed, he follows me through the white halls, then out to the courtyard. At the tinkling of falling water, Nuele stops. His vertical slits widen, black almost eclipsing all the yellow in his eyes. I cannot help but smile. I had the same reaction years ago. Of course, the fountain cleaner before me, Aquadara, had been tasked by the priest to find a successor. Nuele I have brought with no permission. I may be punished, but cruel as the benefactors can be, time is crueler still. My chances to share the fountain's secrets are dwindling, as is Nuele's patience. One day he will rebel. I would not stop him if I could, but I will guide him while I can. As we kneel in the sand before the deep basin, grains lodge themselves between our scales. Nwele hisses. Then I take his hand and place it into the water. He gasps. Quicker than I can react, he plunges his head in. My fins flip with laughter. Slowly, I submerge my head too. Relief. Pure relief. Purer even the breathing in the clouds, for here there is no lightning, no harvest, just cool water caressing my face. I allow Nwele a moment of silent rapture before fluttering my fins as fast as I can. Water ripples around us. The sound of its motion is shaped not only by my fins, but by thousands of minuscule etchings I and those before me have carved into the basin. Clearer than speech, we hear echoes. In the next life, we'll be born with gills beneath an ocean without end. We cower before the acrid sky, but the world that was left scarred fears not. Why declare ourselves eternal when eras pass and epochs fade? When death is all that does not die, is there consolation in the thought in the next life we'll be born with gills? How low one must sink for the waters to rise, and how much salt can fill a lung before coral creeps over cool white bone and flesh unfurls in fresh decay beneath an ocean without end? How could one deny the night inked on the sky in clouds of carbon with every choked and labored breath? Will we insist it's morning yet as we cower before the acrid sky, when oil skims on the ocean burn in rancid rainbow flames? Surely in such sick light we'll see we have reveled in ruin till nothing remains but the world that was left scarred. As we dissolve into the waves, will anything like thought remain, or our minds cry out, or will they calm as we realize life fears not? Fear not. Life will burst from what now rots, abandoning the sky. Change is unending as the sea, and the next life will be born with bodies like ribbon, bodies like string, necklace shaped with mouths full of beads. Luminescent limbs will trail through the ever-shifting dark. Fear not. For survival is a drifting away from the light, from the bones that weigh us down, from all that we were made. Life will burst from what now rots, begin again, begin then perish, giving way to beings bold and foreign to us now, familiar only in that they are. Abandoning the sky may feel like death and we may die. What sacrifice can we withhold from the altar of what must be? Bodies and fate must now diverge. Change is unending as the sea, as the green glass waves forever lapsing, bleeding on the bones of the beach, as ghosts and futures dance in the depths. In next life we'll be born with. Born with what? Nwele demands, eyes wide. Why does it end there? It never ends. I place my hand over Nwele's, bringing his palm to the bottom of the basin. With wondering fingertips, he explores the etchings. Feel the patterns? They repeat, cascade. There are lines we carry forward, then leaps in language, breaks in rhythm, things that change. I touch Nwele's cheek. You will go where I dare not, and I love you for it, child. But do not go without stories. They are our before and after. Ghosts and futures, said Nwele. Before I can tell him what it means to me, hearing my uncertain words in his strong voice, there is one scream, then many, the thick-tongued screams of the begotten. We pull our heads from the water and run. As we reach the sand before the chapel, I realize these are not cries of fear, but grief. One of our own is dying. I know it will be Dolocanto, the missing scales, the mossy skin. I have seen the signs before. I bear them myself. The death that greets Dolocanto will be my own, not terribly long from now. Because I am the oldest and Nwele is Nwele, the crowd gathered around Dolocanto parts for us. Only Avadia is still, kneeling beside the dying elder. I sink beside her. What's happening? She asks, eyes wide with horror. What does it look like? Nwele snaps. He's dying. I put a hand on Evadia's shoulder. He is sick, child. We call it the Genesis. Her fins flutter in confusion. Genesis? A disease that returns us to what we were before the benefactors changed us. Dolocanto moans and lifts what remains of his right arm. Everything below the elbow has already been eaten away, and grayish-green dust is heaped by his side. Algae oozes from the gaps in his scales, creeping toward his shoulder. More slimy patches glisten on his chest and stomach. One eye is filmed over completely. This is the Genesis. Algae consumes the body it has been trapped in, then desiccates in the hostile air. Dolocanto's gaping mouth fights to form words. All his teeth are gone, and his tongue is green. He pleads. Someone get the priest, Nwele shouts. Then, dropping to Dolocanto's side, come on, old man. His words are brusque, but his tone is almost gentle. Don't die talking their way. Talk to us. Dolocanto's dimming eyes drift in my direction. Spera, he begs, fins moving fitfully. Final rites. I place a soothing head on Dolocanto's forehead where the rot has yet to spread. Father Sirus will be here as soon as he can. The membrane over his visible eye flickers like a child's. I want to go to heaven. You'll go, you'll go. No. Dolocanto sobs, a horrible, choky sound low in his throat. Not us. Not this. And I know he means the spreading algae, the essence of what we are. He believes what the benefactors tell us. Before their intervention, we were nothing. How can lowly creatures like us aspire to the same afterlife? Algae creeps out of Dolocanto's mouth as he sputters and gasps. It has already spread up his neck, stifling his fins. He cannot speak, but his eye still pleads. This is what we are, I say softly. I do not know if we had language. I do not know if we had a purpose. I do not understand the soul. The story the benefactors tell may be true, but I will tell you another. I grasp Dolocanto's softening, rotting face in both hands. I ignore the warm, wet algae encroaching on my fingers, stinging the webs between them where there are no scales. I believe that we were ever and always ourselves. I believe water felt like music as it moved within us, and the tide pools sang with our shared vibrations, and there was joy. But both Dolocanto's eyes are gone now. He no longer gasps. He may be dead already, but I bow my head and recite the poem from the fountain. I am no priest, but I will give Dolocanto what last rites I can. When I reach the final stanza, Nuele joins in. Stunned, I fall silent, but Nuele forges on past the ending. He paints the next life in colors of fire. We will be born with claws and fangs. We will be born amid the corpses of those who would harm us. We will be born into a world. Nuele falters. He turns to me, but I only gaze up at him, waiting. Then he thrusts a hand at Evadia. Her eyes shine as she takes it, rising to stand beside Nuele. She imagines the world that will be reached through Nuele's roar, and it is beautiful. I will not live to see the poem end. How fortunate none of us do. And that's the end of the story. Yeah, so I'm going to need to drink some water after that. Feel free to ask any questions that you have about the story, the anthology, my writing in general, or just any questions you have. Yes, I see. I love the imagery. Thank you so much. Yay. Yay as well. My throat is so dry after that. I feel a lot like the Begotten right now with how dry my throat is. Drink that drank. True. Yeah, okay. Arctic Whispers ASMR sent a smile. That's fun. Thank you. Oh, wow, we have 6 people here. That's wild. Hopefully you guys weren't too lost. Desiccated. Yeah. Yeah, desiccated is a very fun word. I do enjoy using that one. Mesmeric is another one that stuck out to me because I definitely used it in I don't remember if it was chapter 2 or chapter 3, but it came up in my my wizard story that I was working on earlier today. I mentioned someone has mesmeric eyes. Who was I talking about? I was probably talking about Keeper Verente. Her golden nymphic eyes are very mesmeric. But then again, I mean, they're wizards. A lot of them have very fun, very bright eyes. So like getting off topic here, but one of my works in progress is a fantasy novel about wizards in space, specifically a cleric who has to choose between serving the goddess that she has devoted her life to and saving the universe that this goddess wants to destroy and vengeance. So the main character, Maja, the highest cleric, she is part stellar nymph. So she has like these golden glowing eyes and they are, mesmeric and all that. And then I feel like I probably had to cut it out because I probably also tried to use the word for the apothecary character who's a friend of the main character. She has like very beautiful silver eyes. And I probably tried to call them mesmeric. I was like, you can't call everyone's eyes mesmeric. Edit that out. Yeah, so let me look at the comments. Hydrate, true. It was so good. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Ooh, adding my TBR. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, God. We will see when that wizard book is done. Because like I said at the very beginning, like this is a project that I've had kicking around in some shape or form for, probably more than 10 years at this point. Like I have drawings of these characters. Not Maja, actually. The main character I did not come up with until later. But, they're the goddess. I've been drawing her since like high school. So I have old art that I'm not going to show. I'm not going to show it on stream because it's horrifying. And I'd also have to dig through like 10 million years of old notebooks. But, it's a very long-term work in progress that I've been, getting progressively more serious about, but I do tend to like knock it to the side when I have a project that I feel like is more, actually, what was I going to say?
doable because the Wizard book is very ambitious. There's 8 different worlds, very complex magic system, a lot of characters, a religion, so it is no coincidence that Francisca and the Forgotten was the first novel I ever finished writing because in scope it is so simple. It's self-contained, very small cast of characters, pretty straightforward message. Like it was a book that I had to write, and it wasn't a book that was very hard to write. So it makes sense that it would be the one that I would finish first. And then I have my second novel, Lemon Squares in All Dimensions. That one is coming out next March. It's about a robot housewife who gets arrested for murder, and I'm very excited for it. It's a lot of fun. And it's, in terms of the sort of scope and ambition of it, I would say it falls between Francisca and the Forgotten and the Wizard story I'm working on now. Like, it's not as like expansive a world as the Wizard one, but it is set like 200 years in the future, and there's some very out there world building elements that take a lot of explanation. So, compared to something like Francisca, where, it's mostly in our world, and then there's a bit of a, the afterlife, which, it's the afterlife. You can play around with it and it can be a little vague and blurry, but science fiction, you need to make it make sense, or else people are going to be really mad at you. So Lemon Squares in All Dimensions was, a bit of a step up in terms of, the challenge of writing it. And because of that, I'm really proud of it and really excited to get to share it with people. And the Wizard story, if I ever finished that, I'm going to be very excited to share that with absolutely everyone. Let me look at the comments. Let's see. I loved your art then. I loved your art then. Okay. I don't know if you introduced yourself in the chat. Please let me know who this is, because I don't know who should know my high school art. That's scary. No, it's not scary. I told like friends and family, but I just need to know who is referencing my high school art. Let's see. Make them all in the same universe. Wizards, ghost, robots. I'm trying to think if that would even... Tom freaking Driscoll. Oh, that's funny. I love that. Okay, I know who this is. Okay. But yes, I'm now trying to think of how I could make them in the same universe, because that is wild. Okay. Here's the thing though, is that the Wizard story is like high fantasy. So like it is not like Earth. The Francisca and the Forgotten and Lemon Squares in All Dimensions are both on Earth. So maybe they could be in the same universe. Francisca and the Forgotten takes place in 2010. Lemon Squares in All Dimensions, like 2200 something. I don't know. So there's no reason they couldn't be set in the same world. You could have ghosts, you could have robots. I don't think you could have the Wizards, though. Like, that, I think, is just a completely different reality. Like, unfortunately. I would love to have my Wizards meet Sarah, the main character in Lemon Squares in All Dimensions, the robot housewife who gets arrested. She, I think, would have a lot of fun with Maja, not because they like each other, but because they're both misogynist. I love writing female characters who are misogynists and really have to work with that and suffer through that. So, very contentious. I need a robot possessed by a ghost that battles with magic. Broken heart emoji. True, true, true. Well, if anyone has any questions specifically about Ghost and Futures, I'd be happy to answer. Cyberpunk, Harry Potter. You know what? Harry Potter is the ops, okay? I specifically chose to use the word wizard in this because I feel spiteful about the fact that like people act like J.K. Rowling owns that now, and she has gone so deep off the rails with transphobia, and it is just so like disgusting how deep into hate that she has just sank and rotted to the point where she's just like gleefully spending millions of dollars to try and like push legislation against people who are just trying to live their lives, and obviously, I don't think me using the word wizards out of spite is any grand act of praxis or that it's going to make people's lives better, but it makes me feel better, and I like to think that, I'm reclaiming wizards for the queer community. We're keeping these for ourselves, and we're gonna have a great time doing it. Yeah, cyberpunk, Harry Potter, but yeah, no, cyberpunk would actually be more like you might remember this because I probably yapped about it all the time in high school. Amethyst the Assassin is my most like cyberpunk project, and I actually for those of you who don't know, Amethyst the Assassin was like my like OG like work in progress eternally that I had been working on that one since middle school. That story has been with me I mean, since I was like 13 years old. And it's about like a cyborg assassin who gets sent to murder like the president's son. And I mean, it's just crazy. It's a crazy ride. It's very cyberpunk. I actually ended up writing part one of what I projected to be like a three-part book for my thesis in college. And I mean, if anyone wants to check it out, like hit me up and I'll send it to you because I formatted it as an ebook because I needed practice with the Vellum, like the formatting software we were using in grad school. I had never like laid eyes on it in my life. I had no idea how it worked. And I didn't want to be like the weak link in my cohort because like I was the youngest. I don't know if I was the youngest. I think Brianna was younger. I was one of the younger members of the cohort. I was definitely one of the least experienced. And so I felt like I had a lot to prove and really like hone in on. So as soon as I found out, like, okay, like, we're going to be doing this next semester, I'm going to be practicing over winter break to sort of get my head around the software. So I'm not using it for the first time when I'm trying to, like, work on a project with other people. So I'm not holding anyone back. So, I formatted a bunch of like, I formatted some fan fiction as ebooks too, and I have them on my phone, but I'm not sharing those. Those go to my grave. But Amethyst the Assassin, I can send that one around. That one's a lot of fun. I've sort of played with the idea of going back to finish it, because I have the outlines, and I mean, obviously these characters are very dear to me with how long they have been in my life, and I do want to see that story finished at some point. It's just, it's so hard to pick one project to really dial in on and finish because I just love bouncing back and forth between all my different ideas. Like, I mean, really, at one point in my life, I was working on Francisca and the Forgotten, this wizard story, Amethyst the Assassin, and Lemon Squares in All Dimensions all at the same time. And they're just sort of gradually, bit by bit, finally making it out into the world. So, I mean, right now I'm trying to get the wizard story to be the next one I finish, but I don't know if it'll be the next one I publish. I mean, that one I might like sort of hold off until I can really, really do something with it. I don't even know. I don't know, because I don't know. That one's going to be a hard one. For Amethyst the Assassin, I know for a fact I am capable of writing that and finishing that. The wizard story, I don't know. I don't know about that one. But yes. Yeah, no. And Ghost and Futures, I mean, that was actually not very hard to write. Like, sometimes short stories can be a real challenge. Like, John would know because I was crashing out for like a week straight when I was trying to write a story for every year my grad school puts out a new anthology. I was talking about it in the beginning with the mermaid one and then the one my cohort did with like the magical cats. But this year, the anthology that's going to be coming out next summer, the theme is superheroes, super problems. And it's kind of like, like slice of life superheroes, like, oh, I have magical powers, but, I can't, get out of divorce court hearings or, something like that, which I think is a really fun premise. And originally I was just kind of like, oh, maybe I'll write something, maybe I won't. But then I saw Spider-Man Brave New World and I was like, okay, I need to write something for this right now because it brought my Green Goblin Willem Dafoe obsession back in full force. And just, I was like, oh, I need to. And so the premise of my story, which I haven't submitted it yet because submissions don't open for like, they open next week, September 1st, I believe. But the premise of my story is basically that there is this city on the moon in like this big dome. And like there was this like great hero who was like watching over it. He has this like aura sort of around the city to like make it this like beacon of positivity. But then this hero dies and this villain takes over and there's like this dark aura around the globe. And it's basically like, it's like if Gotham was a snow globe on the moon, essentially. And, there's the hero whose powers that he can see in the dark and he's trying to take down this villain. And then, however, the villain has like a stroke, like in the middle of like capturing the hero and he just barely manages to get away. And then like just over a few months, like this villain just like continues to like deteriorate and just like develop like dementia and like forget who he is. And so like the hero like captures him and is trying to get to the bottom of like what has happened to the city, what happened to that hero, like who this villain truly is. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. I say it's a lot of fun because I finished writing it. It was not a lot of fun in the moment. It was a lot of hard work because the word count maximum is 5,000 words. And that is a lot for the amount of plot and, mental goings on that I just described. So trying to force all of that into 5,000 words. I mean, at times it felt like a fool's errand, but I was actually really proud of myself because I was able to like cut down from like, I think I have like 6.5 thousand words. I was able to get from that to 5K without cutting a single scene, just by tightening up the prose. And like that is hard because I mean, not to like, you know, I mean, not to toot my own horn, my prose is pretty tight already. Like, I do a good job with that. So to be able to go through and do that much, like, reframing and just, reconfiguring, like, what do I really need to say here? Like, I mean, that was actually a pretty, like, I felt good about that experience. It's like, okay, like, I just did that. I don't know if the story's going to make it into the anthology. I mean, I know from being on the other side of the process, like, just how hard it is for a story to make it in. And, a piece of advice that I give people who are trying to submit to anthologies is don't hit the maximum word count because they will be looking for shorter stories to balance out the long ones that everyone's writing because they want the max amount of money. And because it's hard to write a shorter story, it if every just think about it like if it's a book, if every chapter was 5,000 words, like you'd get sick of it. It'd just be too long, too monotonous. So you want like maybe a 5,000 word story, then like a 3,000, then like a 4,000, like you want to have that like balance and flow when you're cultivating an anthology. So if you can write a story that absolutely hits all the requirements that they're looking for and it's shorter than their requesting, like that alone makes you stand out. That and knowing how to format, because a lot of people do not know what manuscript formatting means, and it shows, and they get thrown out instantly. So yeah, can attest to the Green Goblin fixation. Yeah, you can barely attest. Like the Green Goblin fixation I have now is nothing compared to the levels of Green Goblin fixation I was on in 2021. Like it spilled over into the fact that like I watched The Lighthouse like every day for like 4 days, which isn't that much, but it's a lot when you see the intensity of what The Lighthouse is like. I don't know, what can I say? Willem Dafoe is one of the greats. I hope to one day be as good at writing as Willem Dafoe is at making wild expressions. Like what a talent. Yeah. Yeah, we're now seeing some comments. I see, yeah, yes, I believe in you. That's very sweet. Thank you. Yes, the crash outs are real. They are. Oh my God, yes. Can attest the Green Goblin. Yeah. Well, we're nearing 7 o'clock. So unless anyone has other questions, we will probably be wrapping up here in about a minute. But like, thank you all so much for coming. This has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad I got to share the story. And like I said, I'm especially really glad that this anthology is supporting kids in need of defense, and that's where the proceeds go. So, it'll be helping immigrant kids who are separated from their parents at the border. So, a very worthwhile cause. And it's also like a gorgeous cover. Like my webcam is terrible, so it looks like potato quality, but like look at this, like this purple city. Yep, was fun. You have a great voice for reading. Thank you. I mean, I did debate and stuff like that in high school. So I've had a lot of practice. Spoken word too. Debate and spoken word, I would say, are probably like my like biggest sort of like presentation influences. And it influences my writing as well, especially the spoken word part of it, because I'm always thinking about how my words would, land if they're being spoken, like how they would feel to like perform in a sense. And that's why I tend to use a lot of like alliteration and stuff like that, because I'm imagining someone reading my words and having that like feeling of just like the rhythm of it and stuff like that. I really enjoy conveying that through prose. Yeah. All right, that's really cool. Thank you. All right, you've inspired me to try to finish the book I started high school. Yes! Lock the fucking... We should, like, exchange pages or something. We should do this. And you should finish it. I'll introduce you to my publishers. Like, we'll get it out there. Like, you should. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're right at 7 here, so I think I am going to head off. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for supporting me in the anthology. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and that you don't, rot from the inside out and turn to a heap of algae. Goodbye. I don't know how to end a stream. We'll learn how. I'll just exit out.